Hello friends, welcome to the Ballpoint Drawing Podcast. I'm glad you joined us today. What we're going to talk about is the ballpoint drawing of a light bulb. And I want to go over some techniques that I use that you might try today if you want, and some materials that I used. So I used, for this drawing, Bristol board. It's one of my favorites to draw on with a ballpoint pen. And it has a real nice smooth surface. One side is a little bit more textured than the other. It's hardly noticeable, but maybe it matters if you're drawing something that you want a really nice smooth surface. Just check it before you start penciling your sketch in. For it, I used a grid to start anchoring in the main edges and outlines, and from there I just drew in the rest. And once I had a nice outline going, we started in with some pens. So for this one, I used 3 pens primarily. I like the Bic Crystal pen. It's the medium thickness pen of the ones I have. And then I used a Bic Crystal, a 1.6 millimeter. This is going to put out a lot more ink than this one. And this one's for fine details. It's a really small, ultra fine kind of line. So they all serve a really good purpose in a drawing, and I will mention this one has a slightly different color, I mean it seems to me, than these ones do. But when you're blending, it all seems to come out or work together, and you get a nice overall product if you're using all 3 everywhere. So definitely experiment with that if you want. So when you have some ink down and you want to experiment in blending, what I recommend trying is the tip of your finger. You can do nothing and just let the pen do all the blending, and that is what it is. If you want to try, you can push a little pressure down and just kind of put some ink in like that. Another thing people do that you'll see once in a while is they'll use some tissue and then just take it, and move it around to a little bit of ink. Okay, and I will mention that when you do move down some ink, you're going to have a little bit that will move, and if you don't want it to go on a certain part of the drawing, be careful, because you can smear the ink in a spot where you wanted it to be a highlight. Okay, so be very careful of that. Here's the reference photo that I used from pixabay.com. Bondi is the one who uploaded it. It's a good place to get photos without being concerned of copyright violation and stuff like that. I've uploaded several photos myself, but you'll see some decisions had to be made about what do I want to include and what do I not want to include. There's some reflections that I didn't particularly like, and so I wanted to just tell the story of a light bulb. So I started out with a basic grid to anchor in the edges. Once those were in place, I used a pen to just do a real light outline over the top, erase my grid lines, and be careful of the filament and different things. So I recommend having a scrap piece of paper somewhere that you can use to just be kind of a scratch pad, and when you get going and a pen doesn't want to work, just give it a little warm up. Once you see that it's working, it's good. And another thing that's really helpful to do is to roll the pen, kind of like give it a roll, because what that'll do is allow any globbed up kind of paint ink to get off of the tip, and you don't want that to show up. If it does, it's not the end of the world. It just becomes part of the drawing. And this one, especially if you use the 1.6 millimeter, I'll tell you, this one does glob up a lot more than the others do, but it's got a nice kind of a dark tone that's really helpful, but you can already see a little bit there. Maybe you can't see, but anyways, but you can see I'm starting off with subtle pressure and just building in where the darker values will be, and again using the scratch pad, making sure your pen is working. And I have a few of each, and then I just swap them out as I need. And when you are in an area that will be nice and dark, you can put a little more pressure like I did there. You can see that it's not danger to put too much pressure if you know it's going to be dark. But if you're not sure, just do some layers and don't be too hasty there. Definitely take a break, come back later, look at it again. No rush. Need a little pen spinning break once in a while. All right, so next, keep moving forward, and I noticed the threads on the bulb had some really interesting light patterns, the way the threads were reflecting some light in some spots, and then there was a valley in between. And I worked really hard to get that just as close as I could to the reference photo. And you'll see a little closer up there. It's still in the beginning phases at this point, but you can see that there's some real valleys where it's really dark, and then some areas where it's almost no ink at all. And if you do a drawing like this, be careful of the glass itself, because it has a real interesting behavior where the light hits it and it is actually not. You can see like there's a whole band there that isn't. There's no ink there, so you just be careful. So for the bulb of the part that has a lot of highlight, I was really careful to keep the paper really white. And you can use this is a kneaded eraser, and it's not going to pull up like ink that's really thick in there, but it will pull up some ink. And if you were trying to keep an area white as a highlight, what you can do is just pull this across the paper, and then you'll see that it might get dirty, so just fold it. And I use this a lot to keep areas that I want to be white really clean as much as I can. And the palm of your hand will get kind of dirty, so this scratch pad can also serve as a thing that you can rest your hand on so you don't ruin your drawing. But if you do get some from the palm of your hand on, you can try and erase some of it off, and that'll serve the drawing to just erase. Okay, so some things to try. The bulb itself was tricky at best because there's a lot of nice reflections in it, and I wanted to do those reflections to a certain degree, and you can see I'm putting in a little more pressure just to kind of indicate the shape of it. All these hatch marks are in the curved direction of the bulb, and you can see there it's going a little heavier just around the edge, in spots, and not every last place around the edge, just here and there. Then I pulled out the 1.6. You can notice the difference. It's really nice and dark there. Okay, you can get a real thick blue. So when you have if you want to blend with your finger, or if you have a tissue, once you've got a lot of ink down, you can kind of blend it in. And if you have a tissue, when you're doing the edge of the bulb itself, I found it to be pretty helpful to get some of that round ambient kind of blue look. It's tricky to get that just right. And then I erased all the highlights with a kneaded eraser, constantly making sure I'm not smudging the work I've done. The cast shadow under the bulb is kind of interesting because it's almost like definitely right where the threads are hitting, but then more so you can see it's in the shape of the bulb itself.